So this week, most of my work was done on setting up the API and just kind of doing some research on that, and the Google Places API, I mean. And so I don't have too much to demo this week, but there was just a lot of research and documentation that was read. But you can kind of see some of the work that I started to do. When you log in, I get the user's current location, and that's going to eventually be used for obviously the current location here and just like searching things in the general area. So another thing that I also helped is I helped Campbell with setting up the view plan page a bit. We kind of worked beside each other and kind of putting the modal in the right place. This is the modal I made from last sprint, I believe. Um, and so yeah, just kind of going over and just kind of doing some cleanup from last sprint, some things that we didn't get to finish when we did like all those placeholder screens. And yeah, so that's about it for the demo. You can see my commits start about over here. My places API key and code cleanup. I got the API keys working, calls working. Um, and I found myself going back and forth because Google Places is kind of confusing, or Google Maps is kind of confusing because there's a lot of different iterations of the API, and so she's trying to test out the different versions of it to see what is actually going to work for searching up locations and viewing or displaying locations in the general area based on a specific topic. So yeah, got part of the API calls working. Um, then I fixed, or I included those API responses, JSON responses, in a state. That way, they can eventually be used to go back into those like little cards that we made. And then here is kind of when I was working with Campbell a bit more and adding the voting results modal to the view plan screen. Um, got some merge errors here. So yeah, reverting and merging again with some of Campbell's branches. Um, and then yeah, I added, I was able to make it work with when you click on the little mini pie charts, the voting modal pops up, centering modal, and saving the user's current location and current location using latitude and longitude. So yeah, API key, code cleanup, just pretty self-explanatory. Um, this is one of the API calls that I was working with. This is gets the user's current location, and then I was setting it to a state, and then I was making the API call here using Google Places autocomplete, and I just basically just put in the API key. I put in whatever the search, which is basically whatever's in this input box, and then I use the user's current latitude and longitude and find things through that. And then I just use that as a JSON, and I just console logged it to make sure it was working. Fixing states to include API response. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Voting results modal to view plan screen. Yeah, this is pretty confusing. It looks like there was a lot done, but it was just a lot of moving things around and changing some functions here and there. So my modal, which was made last sprint, is on the correct page. Yeah, the GitHub didn't do too great of a job in showing what was actually new and moved around. It looks like there's a lot done. Yeah, reverted that stuff because Campbell and I were working on the same branch and committing at the same time, and so it got a little difficult and confusing. So yeah, so if you click on the little mini pie charts, then the main one should show up and it should have that data in there. Just a lot of views and modals. Centering the modal. Again, just moving stuff around, and I centered the modal physically on the screen. I did that by just like playing around flex, and you can see that. Yeah, here. And then, yeah, I saved the user's current location to the states. You can see playing around with that. depending on the constructor, um, console logging it, making sure it's actually saving there. And yeah, that's about it for the sprint. Like I said, a lot of it was just really researching and reading the documentation, so there wasn't too much code, API code, that was implemented this sprint, but that's basically what I'm going to be doing next sprint. As you can see, view plan screen with me and Campbell, I was almost done. Just got some minor styling to do with getting these little legend keys in 2 columns, into even columns. And yeah, the API stuff, activity API, just getting the individual activity details. I was able to find out how to do that, but that's kind of reliant on the API search, which is what I'm going to be working on mostly this upcoming sprint. Yeah, because I pretty much understood how to search things, but I'm just working on actually getting the most accurate things done. And yeah, that's about it for this sprint.